Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome once again to another Angry Alien Bulletin. I'm finally feeling well enough to appear on camera again, not completely recovered, but getting there. Once again, thanks everybody for tuning in to the content that I've been putting out. I know it hasn't been exactly up to the standards that I would like it to be at, given how I've been feeling and how that's impacted things. But interestingly enough, this is something I think I've spent too long putting off, is talking about the video that I released just a few days ago. A video about the New Jersey drone UAP phenomenon and how it's not over, at least it does not appear to be, and the phenomenon seems to be spreading around the world still, and it became the most popular video that I ever released by a significant margin. In only 5 days, it's accumulated more than 430,000 views. And the number 2 video that I've ever released, it's also a UAP video, is just under 400,000 views. And that's how much it's accumulated in nearly 2 years. So I know that a lot of my viewers have been wondering, is this where the channel is going to go? Is this going to be the content that I focus on from here on out? Because it's clearly what the viewers want. Well, no. Definitely not. This channel has always been about diverse topics, space flight, space science, those sorts of things, and not necessarily UAP and UFO topics. But still, given the level of popularity, I think it's very obvious that there is a huge amount of interest in this subject, and people really want to know the truth. Although it seems increasingly unlikely that we are ever really going to get the whole truth from the government or from anybody else. But nevertheless, I think it's worthwhile to continue investigating this topic, and not just because it happens to make me money. Because if all I was concerned about is making money, I could put out 2 videos per week like the one that I just released. That could be the only content that I release, and I would make triple the money that I'm currently making on this channel. But I have never sold out my principles, and I'm not going to do it now. And that applies to UAP and UFO topics as much as it does Elon Musk, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I think I've lost a lot of my SpaceX viewership, is because as it became increasingly clear that Elon has been less than truthful and exaggerates so many things in regards to Starship and other future plans for SpaceX, I've been calling him on these things more and more and trying to treat that topic with the same degree of realism, the same critical eye that I turn towards UAPs. That's something that a lot of Elon fanboys don't like, and I've lost a lot of that viewership. But I'm going to continue covering it because it's important. Human spaceflight is every bit as important as whatever may be visiting us from other planets, if that is indeed what the UAP/UFO phenomenon is. So that being said, I know that I've acquired a lot of new viewers lately, thousands of new subscribers in the space of only 48 hours. I think I got another 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers. It's absolutely amazing. So that being said, if I'm going to treat the UFO UAP phenomenon with a critical eye, then we also need to talk about what these objects might be. What are we actually dealing with here? And of course, I think that varies depending on the types of objects that we're seeing, the configuration from orbs to V-shaped craft, to triangular craft, to massive flying saucers, to tiny little spherical objects, a wide variety of UAPs that seem to be as many and varied as the people who witness them. And so it can be very difficult to try to establish any sort of scientific explanation, any sort of theory as to what these objects might be. but I'm going to take a shot at it today, at least when we're talking about the so-called orb UAPs. And I've talked about a scientific explanation for orb UAPs a number of times on this channel, mostly in passing. I have discussed why they would glow, why they would be so obvious in our skies, why do they only appear at night, although they don't. Sometimes they get spotted during the day, and why are they definitely not drones? So we're going to address that right now. Instead of just looking at a piece of footage, as so many of my colleagues do, and saying, wow, that's amazing. That's not a plane. That's not a drone. That's not this. And that's not that. I don't know what that is. Instead of just saying that over and over again, I think the viewers deserve a solid theory. I'd like to take a shot at explaining at least orb UAPs, especially some footage that was sent to me by one of my viewers, footage that was filmed from an aircraft over the city of Atlanta. And I want to emphasize, this is just a theory. This is just an idea based on sound scientific principles and technology that we may not possess, but we can certainly theorize about, and also give you my ideas as to where these craft might originate from, why we have such a difficult time in actually identifying them, why nobody can capture them, why they never seem to crash, although a lot of people say that they do crash and the government seems to carry them away to some secretive laboratory to experiment on them. I actually don't believe that that's really happening, at least not as often as we've been led to believe. And once and for all, try to clear up this topic just a little bit for the viewers. What are orb UAP? How do they do the things that they do? And where do they come from? So let's start out with this exclusive footage, at least as far as I know. This hasn't been shared with much of anybody else, that was sent over to me from an individual who was flying over the Atlanta area, over the Atlanta airport, actually on December 21st. Quote, I'm attaching two videos. One is an original capture and the other is a simple close-up as I did phone screen recording. Background info, I was on a plane to visit family for Christmas. Object appeared to my naked eye as an orb, bright light that was hovering. I captured it shortly after the plane took off. Only after I did a zoom in on a video afterwards could I see the plasma-like appearance. There were more orbs like it, but this one was the closest and the plane was passing it by. Right after I turned off the camera, it looked as if it turned into a drone with blinking lights. About me, I am a PhD candidate in molecular biology genetics. I'm also a published photographer. I know how to use the camera, and observation skills are important in my line of work. I decided to share this capture with you because I feel like I should try to share it. I was trying to contact other outlets, but it's difficult to get the contact information or it's behind a paywall. Just want to be clear, I include my email address in most, if not all, of my videos. If you have something you'd like to share with me, please do so. I would really like to hear about your experiences. So why is this not some sort of mundane object as many people think it is? Why is this not an aircraft? Why is this not a drone? Why is this not some sort of flare dropped by a military plane? Well, it could be one of all of these three explanations, but I find it extremely unlikely that these sorts of things could be appearing over major metropolitan areas without some sort of warning or some sort of explanation. First of all, this object clearly does not have the FAA recognizable landing lights or anti-collision lights. Also, if it's a military flare of some kind, why are military planes dropping these flares over major metropolitan areas without any sort of warning or explanation? Once again, I find that highly unlikely. Also, in this particular piece of footage, you're going to see a lot of orb UAPs UAPs show up abruptly once the observer places a laser finder on the first object that he's observing. After this happens, all of a sudden, many orbs start to appear out of nowhere. Again, not only is that inconsistent with military training exercises or any other operation where the military would drop flares, but also the aircraft who drop these flares are making no noise. We don't hear any noise whatsoever from a helicopter, from a propeller-driven aircraft, certainly not from a jet-propelled aircraft. And again, if we're talking about military flares being deployed by aircraft, we would definitely hear them in this footage, and yet we don't. Now, artillery can also place flares, but artillery going off in a major metropolitan area is irresponsible in the extreme. Now, it could also be extremely bright strobe lights of some kind being hung off of drones, some sort of commercial drones being flown by fraudsters, by pranksters, whatever you want to call them. But if this is a nationwide prank being pulled off by private drone operators, why have none of them ever been caught? Why have their drones never been retrieved? Not a single drone has ever crashed. Not a single drone has ever been successfully intercepted by the military. The police can neither bring them down nor arrest any drone operators, and also no drone operator has come forward to confess that they've been perpetrating this hoax on the American people either. And I find it very difficult to believe that a nationwide prank of this magnitude could be carried out without somebody talking, without somebody at least bragging about it online or meeting somebody who bragged about it online. And yet all we have is utter silence and these strange lights in our night skies. So if these are not mundane objects, then what are they? Well, first of all, let's talk about their characteristics. They move and hover without making any noise whatsoever. Again, not very drone-like, given the fact that most drones utilize propellers or jet propulsion, something that makes at least a little bit of noise. They also don't have any sort of FAA landing lights, collision lights. Instead, they just have these bright glowing lights that occasionally disappear and then reappear seemingly at random without any sort of recognizable pattern. In addition to that, they only appear at night. Well, that's not entirely true, because we do have some orb UAP sightings during the day that exhibit a lot of the same behavior, but without any of the bright lights. So what does that mean? Why do these things glow at night? Are they just simply turning their lights on to make sure that nobody can collide with them, just to announce their presence to other aircraft or passing vehicles to make sure that they're not going to experience any sort of collision? Well, that could be the case, but there's another explanation as to why these things would glow at night and not during the day, and would still be able to accomplish the same things utilizing the same technology. Does this look a little bit familiar? Well, it should. Looks like a flying saucer. And this should look even more familiar. What you're watching right now are excerpts from a couple of videos put out by a channel called Astronics, and they deal with next-generation propulsion systems. And as you can see, the type of propulsion they're talking about is called electro-hydrodynamic propulsion. And actually, both types of propulsion depicted in these videos deals with utilizing magnetic fields to create ionized plasma around the craft, and then manipulating that ionized plasma to provide thrust. Now, when operating in the atmosphere, this drive ionizes both the air particles in front and behind the craft, although differently. You have negatively charged ions at the back and positively charged ions at the front. Since positive and negative ions attract one another, this provides an airflow around the spacecraft, thus providing both lift and thrust. And also, since the craft is going to be surrounded by ionized plasma while the drive is in operation, it will glow, especially at night. Might glow a little bit during the day as well, but it would definitely be obvious during the night. Now, in space, the same principle applies, except you utilize the magnetic field to manipulate the solar wind, which is already comprised of ions, so you don't even need to ionize the particles around the craft. You simply generate an artificial magnetosphere around your spaceship, and then the solar wind provides the thrust for you. You could achieve speeds as high as 60 to 300 kilometers per second utilizing this system, and you could probably get even better speeds out of it if you had a more powerful magnetic field being generated by a fusion reactor. So what we have here is a propulsion system that can push a desired object in any direction, can change direction at will, and can also move without sound. The only thing that would give it away is the glow of the ionized plasma around the craft, which is what we see with these orb objects. And here's the best thing of all about this propulsion system. It works best with spherical or saucer-shaped objects. An aircraft, something that looks like a ship or a rocket, this sort of propulsion system doesn't work as well as an object that provides a smooth and balanced airflow around the entire vehicle. In other words, something spherical or something saucer-shaped, which is exactly what we're seeing in our skies, at least with orb UAPs. When it comes right down to it, a lot of flying saucer UAPs as well. But given the fact that the majority of these orb-like objects are 1 to 2 meters in diameter, some of them a little bigger, but some of them even smaller, the idea of this type of propulsion system being used on an object this small is definitely beyond our current technology. You would have to micro-miniaturize a nuclear reactor, preferably a fusion reactor, in order to generate the necessary power to either ionize airflow or just to create an artificial magnetosphere around your craft to maneuver through space. So we're not talking about an object of human manufacture, although it is utilizing a technology that we can at least understand, a technology that we can comprehend and theorize about. And so what are these objects and where do they come from? Well, I continue to believe in the more conventional explanation that they come from another civilization, and they're not here to enslave us, they're not here to kidnap us, they're not here to do anything all that dangerous or nefarious. As a matter of fact, they may not be all that interested in us at all. They may instead simply be interested in the planet, a promising planet with a very habitable environment, with a wide variety of life forms, not just us, and they may have a simple directive to explore the planet, learn as much as they can about the biology, about any sort of civilization that might exist here, and to do their very best to evade capture and pursuit while still getting their job done. And why are they so obvious in our atmosphere, at least at night? Well, it's because they don't have a choice, because of the propulsion system that they use, which elegantly allows them to travel both through the atmosphere and through space, but it just causes the atmosphere to glow around them, and there isn't much that they can do about that. Oh, and here's another intriguing detail about this technology. Even in space, it would glow because the artificial magnetosphere would still cause the craft to be surrounded by ionized plasma generated by the solar wind. So even the orb UAP that we've seen in close proximity to the International Space Station can be explained by this technology, this elegant drive system. In addition, although usually all we observe observe our Orb UAP hanging in one particular location or sometimes maneuvering slowly through the atmosphere, this drive system would definitely allow for some pretty impressive and diverse feats of maneuverability and also incredible bursts of speed, as you can see in this footage, which by the way is provided by Jen. I strongly recommend that you visit his site as well, because he has quite a lot of UAP footage that I've never seen anyplace else. So am I saying that this is definitely what these UAP are, that we are definitely being visited by extremely advanced probe craft of some kind from extraterrestrial civilizations? Well, no. It's possible that it could be something else, but nevertheless, everything fits. All of the characteristics, all of the maneuvering capabilities, all of the behaviors of these objects, and also the size seems to fit with a small probe craft being powered by some sort of electromagnetic drive system, either a simple artificial magnetosphere or magnetohydrodynamic propulsion. Oh yeah, one other detail, by the way, this works even better in water than it does in the atmosphere. Ionizing water molecules surrounding the craft, providing incredible speed in the water, therefore explaining how these craft are also able to plunge beneath the ocean waves and re-emerge with seeming impunity. So it seems pretty compelling to me. But once again, we're not going to know the truth until a serious scientific study is done of these craft. And given how often Orb UAPs are being spotted, and given that more advanced equipment is definitely available to study them. And by the way, there's a team of researchers in the coastal New York area who are doing just that. I have a link regarding their study at the end of this video. We need more teams like them, and they need to be able to carry out their research without ridicule from the mainstream media, without ridicule from the mainstream scientific community. They need to be treated with an open mind, and they need to be properly supported, not only financially, but also preferably by government agencies that have much deeper pockets to uncover these types of mysteries. And until we actually get that level of commitment, I don't think we're ever going to have a definitive answer to this mystery. And after all these decades of sightings, don't we deserve an explanation? Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I would also like to thank Herman A. and Matthew Hine, my latest Patreon supporters. Without you folks, there's no way I would be able to stay in operation and cover the topics that I want to cover, as opposed to just the topics that are the most popular. So once again, thanks so much for that. And if you'd like to join these folks, all the details are in the description. So until next time, stay angry about space.